Tonight, hey ho, here I am, and this new Kirblog's waiting to begin. Hey everybody, happy July. I can't believe it's been an entire year since Anime-Expo 2015. The day after this one comes out will be a whole year since the premiere of the last episode of Tome, Train to Magical Expertise at AX last year, and it's incredible. I just recently went back and I watched the last episode with the live audience reaction, and it made me cry. Start things off with that, I'll say. I'm leaving this subject behind. I have something I want to record while I'm at AX, but I don't know if it'll be coming up over the weekend, so I wanted to leave this behind and kind of start off the month with something relatively important. This is another one, like with the previous topic I did, where I'm just kind of hitting the record button. I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but I'm kind of actually killing two birds with one stone on this one. This is two different questions. The first one is from an anonymous contributor over Tumblr, who I asked if I could answer this in the form of a Kirblog, and they were very kind to allow me to do that, so I've disguised their name. But Anonymous said, "Hi, I'm here again with another slightly deep question. I feel like all the stuff that I'm doing is useless. I want to put importance to the things I do, but I feel like nothing will come out of it, even my dreams of becoming an animator. Do you have any advice to get me out of this way of feeling? Also, if you actually do answer this, could you answer it privately? Thanks so much." And they, of course, gave me permission after I asked them to do this in the form of a Kirblog. The other one that I'm going to answer is from a YouTube comment by Ryko Master, apologies. "Hey Kirb, I really want to know your thoughts on the whole no effort equals success debate that's been going on. I hear a lot of people say that people who don't put effort on their content to make downright shit content shouldn't get millions of views or thousands of subscribers. Do you think no effort should equal success, or do you think it should equal failure? I really want your input on this subject." So the reason that I'm answering both of these questions together is not due to laziness, in fact, but due to, I think that they're both kind of in tandem with a lot of how my sensibilities have changed as an artist. Just to preface before I kind of get into this, number one, I am, to people who are longtime listeners, I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of information on this one, so I do apologize if you're going to be hearing, repeated stuff over and over. More importantly, the reason I want to go into this, but both of these topics combined into one subject, these two questions combined into one subject, I should say, is because they also have a lot to do with kind of what I've been going through lately. Like, not to get too, let me air out my dirty laundry to you all, but I think it is relevant and important to talk about this stuff openly with you guys, and hopefully, kind of what my personal experiences are with this sort of thing will be helpful to both of you and anybody else listening to this in some way. So my desire to create, to be a storyteller, I can't exactly say where it originated from. I think that the simplest way is to just, boil it down to I was inspired by what I was watching on TV and the movies and playing games and stuff. And, all of those things collectively were making me want to, to create my own stories. And I think also it had a lot to do with my friends and also in the beginning, my lack thereof. Because for a while, the only characters I was making were either fan characters or characters based on myself, because that was all I had to go off of was me. And it wasn't until I started making friends in school that I began to get inspiration for making new characters, because I was learning more and more about people, which is arguably the most important thing that you get out of going to school, is that you do learn about yourself as a person, you learn about other people and how everything kind of meshes together. For a long time, I think that the way I was describing my my drive to want to, then when I started thinking more deeply about what do I want to do with my future, what do I want to do for my career someday, is working in entertainment. I think a lot of what I was describing my stuff as is it's all in tribute to my friends, and the experiences that all of us have had together and everything, and what I learned from them, which is still definitely true. I mean, Tome is a massive, depiction of that. If anything, it's proof of that. That's what it all is, in tribute to. But I think that there was something more to it, and I didn't really know what it was. And then for a while, and this is going to tie into the secondary question, when I started learning how to use Flash, and I started making cartoons on Newgrounds, and especially when I did Parody Rangers, and then that was, like one of the big things that I was known for, and then of course came the Nintendo collabs and the Brawl Taunts trilogy and all that shit. And, I got really, as I often describe when I tell that story, I got very sidetracked because I was very taken aback by, people are paying attention to what I make now. Oh, I have an audience. I get popular. People appreciate and show their appreciation of what I make. Oh, wow. And oh my God. And even, to a smaller extent, oh man, I can make money off of doing this. That was certainly a factor, but not a major one, to be honest. But yeah, and I was kind of enveloped in that world for a long time. And then, as I've often said in that whole kind of story, I had my little wake up call, and I, realized like, no, I need to, this is a distraction. This isn't really what I want to do. What I really want to do is make original stories, through the medium of animation and storytelling and et cetera, and anything that I can. And I'm glad, and I managed to kind of break out of that phase. And, of course, I still do, dabble in that side once in a while, and I am going to delve a little bit more into that later. But for example, the Undertale cartoon, where that just came from, like, I was very inspired to want to make, just a quick little thing in tribute to how much that game experience impacted me. But that's the other thing too, is like when I finished college and, I took the big leap and I decided, okay, I'm going to do a cartoon based on balancing ads, which was like my magnum opus IP that I've had since I was like 5 years old, technically, when literally the only character was myself and an evil version of myself as the villain. I had finally delved back into, okay, I'm going to do original stories. I'm going to tell the stories that I want to make that are all my own characters that I built from the ground up, and the satisfaction I get from that. And there is, and I've always been able to describe that easily, is that I get a lot of satisfaction from creating in that kind of way. And that is still absolutely true, and I think that is incredibly important to go to the first question. But it wasn't, even all the way through Tome, I didn't know until long after the show was over, the true kind of like, I guess you could say maybe my calling in terms of like why I do it, what it is that I do. And it's interesting because, and I think I've probably talked about this before too. I can't remember because I've said this to a few different people, but I don't know if I've sent it in a Kirblog yet. So I'm just thought barfing at the moment. Because Tome is a story, as I realized way later, after I'd finished it, is that it is a story about trust. Obviously, yes, it is in tribute to the friends that I made on the internet with Mike Lucas back in the early 2000s when he moved away, and that whole story, that is true. And I loved getting to do, the entire process of making it. And I think I forget if I've said this, but also, I think I probably did recently, but self-indulgently, like, the continuation of Tome was motivated by, like, the idea of, like, me wanting to do a bunch of cool moments with Zeto and feel cool, in performing and animating him, which again is completely self-indulgent. But I think that was like a back of my head type of, motivator for continuing it, beyond where I started and everything. But yeah, the bottom line is Tome, I realized, and I'll try to talk about this without spoiling everything in case you guys listening haven't seen it, but it's a story about trust. And especially in the case of Alpha and Zeto representing the two different sides of that. In that Alpha, it was very naive and he was too openly trusting to everybody, and it hurt him in how the virus took a hold of him and was manipulating him and hurting everybody around him in the process. And Zeto was very distrusting to everybody, including his own friends, that he could have and should have trusted with, this major issue that he was too distrusting to want to let anybody else aside from like Kizuna and, somebody else, so I won't say, help him on it because of, how he went about his life. And it isn't until those two characters begin to trust each other that things change. And if you know how the series goes, then you know what that means. So, that was something that was integrated into it very, very subconsciously, because it wasn't something that I was thinking so much at the forefront. And, because of that, may not have been as strong of a story as it could have if I knew that ahead of time. And now, what this has to do with is, and how the kind of next part of this whole chronicle of me. I'm getting to a point with all this, but bear with me, guys. I'm hitting the record button. I don't know how long this is going to go for, so just you're in for however long this ride's going to be. Back in November of this year, I went through some personal issues. Not going to get into the details, but I was depressed for about 4 months. And was very, very, very down on myself, and I was very lost. For one thing, aside from the actual stuff that had happened at the time, I was already kind of scared about I don't know what's going to happen next, because by that point, I had been buying myself some time by going up until November after, last year, this time, when we had finished releasing the last episode and the show was over. I was buying myself some time with the behind-the-scenes extra stuff that had been coming out with the episodes for several months by that point. And and then I was hoping that by that time I would have something substantial to to fully invest myself into in terms of like a big project. And I've talked a lot about that on the What Is Kirb Up To, like, general update video thing that came out a little while ago. And then after that, I was very lost for a while. I went back home. I probably fooled a fair bit of you, with the Kirblogs I was continuing to produce, by that point, and keeping the illusion of that everything was fine, when in reality I was not doing well at that point. And I was doing Poke-Sember. And actually, it's funny, because in the note of Poke-Sember, this is actually kind of a key part of the story. So I was playing my copy of Pokemon Omega Ruby, which I'm sure I'd mentioned during those Kirblogs during that month. I hadn't played Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire at all for years, and since the original game came out on GBA. And when I was playing through it, I finished the main single-player campaign, throughout the course of the 10 days or so that I was gone visiting New York. And when I got close to the end, this isn't really a spoiler, because obviously the Pokemon plots are pretty simple, but there's a scene where the main villain of the single-player campaign realizes they have a what have I done? Oh my God, I'm an awful person type of, existential crisis, I guess. And, they're like giving up on life, and not like they're, they weren't like being suicidal necessarily, but they were like, oh, there's nothing I could ever do to make up for what I've done, for how awful, for all these sins I've committed, etc. But, so, and they're being very dire in the situation. And then their second in command character says, no, that's exactly the reason why you should work for the rest of your life, to do better, to not only atone for what it is that you've done, but to be a better person, to learn from your mistakes, and make the world a better place in retribution for these mistakes that you've made. And I know that maybe to a lot of people that would seem very trite, for me to be so impacted by that, but it wasn't. That moment when I watched that cutscene in that game, it was, I was still very down for a long time after that. I was definitely but I was on a bit of a more positive path back to feeling okay about myself again. And it wasn't until kind of partway through, I think February or so, that I was back in a much better place, and I've been much better now. Now the current issues that I'm facing, which I will get into later, are on a much smaller scale than that. But anyway, I digress. The point is that that moment when I was playing through that Pokemon game and I was experiencing that cutscene was really important, because it not only was very relevant to what I was going through at the time, but much more importantly, it made me really step back, more so than I think I ever had before, and realize exactly why I do what it is that I do. Not just for enjoyment's sake, not just for being self-indulgent, not just for having fun. What is the real core reason at the end of the day? Why do I do this? And it was exactly what had happened right then and there, where I had played games like Pokemon, watched TV shows like whatever, and movies like whatever, etc., and books, comics, anything that left a very positive and important impact on me, in terms of I took something away from it. I learned a lesson from that, and that's when that hit me from that little cutscene in this Pokemon game. I finally realized, of course, this this is the reason why. And then I had a conversation with the lovely Jake Gantz of Studio Yada, who I've known since my Newgrounds days. And it's funny because I was meeting him when I was kind of on the cusp of like, no, I need to stop with this parody shit already, and I need to get back into doing original stuff like I always wanted to. And he was a major supporter of that. And Jake, if you're listening, I don't know if you're ever going to hear this, but you're a great guy, and thanks for being so supportive all that time. But I had a talk with him shortly after that happened, and it was a very nice, eye-opening experience. And I came back home, and then what I decided to focus on, and what I have been focusing on now that we're at just about the halfway point. No, we were past the halfway point by the time this is coming out. I'm recording this on the 29th, and this will be going up on July 2nd while I'm at Anime-Expo. Anyway, we're over halfway through 2016, and my goal for this year, as I was saying in my my New Year's resolution video at the beginning, was I wanted to do better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to push myself to get better. And that was in a way that was kind of my New Year's resolution for I think for 2015. But it's even more so this time, and it has not been easy. And I'm realizing that lately, because in the last month in particular, I have been very, very, very frustrated lately. And some of you have probably, if you follow me on Twitter, maybe you've seen me like once in a while kind of like venting my frustration of how like pissed off I've been and everything, To go to the second question about the effort versus, success kind of thing. A lot of you guys probably know out there that I do have strong opinions about a lot of content creation with, how the way that YouTube is, and not even YouTube specifically, but just the internet in general. YouTube is kind of at the forefront of it just because of it's the biggest platform for people. But yeah, I get very frustrated over, a lot of this type of content that I think that is less than, I don't know, that I feel like isn't raising the bar. It's just kind of like whatever. Like I don't generally enjoy Let's Plays. I'm kind of sick of most review shows. And I know that there are exceptions. I know that there are people within that kind of vein, who are very talented and very entertaining, and who I still enjoy the work of. I can think of a few off the top of my head. But overall, and even like, animation, there's very little that happens. I feel like, and I don't blame people for this. This is because I get that this is kind of the model, is that a lot of people, do parodies so that they can drive more traffic to, their channels, and then, hopefully then try to work on more original stuff. But it's the original stuff that people try to do is I feel like it's so few and far between. And that's just, there's nothing I can really do about that other than just, try to put the message out there of like, hey, everybody, like, try to do something different. Like, if you have an original idea, like, just fuck it, do that, like, don't wait, or don't be distracted like I was for a while, But again, I understand why people do that. And also, like, I've been reminded with the Undertale thing recently, it's like, I understand that sometimes you just got to scratch the creative itch of like when people want to draw fan art, when people want to do, fan productions or whatever, I understand that. I get the itch. I can't remember if I've said this, and if I haven't, then I feel like I'm probably going to put myself in an interesting spot if I put this out here, but fuck it, whatever. One of the projects that I would love to do if I got like some kind of go ahead from Nintendo, and I don't know exactly how their whole like YouTube like partnership thing works or whatever, but I wanted to do an audio adaptation of Super Mario RPG Legends of the Seven Stars with my big giant pool of voiceover actors, and do that and do it like set to gameplay footage and everything. In fact, I was even in talks with the person who could record the footage in the first place to do it that way. And maybe someday if I get like some time where I'm really not doing anything or whatever, like maybe, but it's so low priority compared to the more important things that I need to be focusing on so that I can do the things that I really want to do that are far more important than that. So it's part of the reason why I know I'm putting myself in a bad place, because I know a lot of comments are probably going to be like, oh, I want to see that, and I appreciate that, and I would love to do that too. But I also have to temper myself. I have to temper myself with that, because I look at it like, okay, literally it's a Let's Play fan dub. Like, that's the most like fan wank bullshit I could ever make, like compared to even anything I ever did on Newgrounds. And it would be fun, and I would enjoy it, and I'm sure people would like it and everything. But that also goes back to the bit about effort versus success. Granted, it would still require effort to go about doing it well, but its success would be built off of the actors that I use, and more prominently the content that I didn't create. A game that was brilliantly crafted by a whole team of people in Japan. 15, 20 years ago by this point. I don't even know how old the game is, for Christ's sake. Yeah, so and then meanwhile I think about no, what is the real thing that I want to be doing next? And which there are many. The most prominent things are balancing act, which I am not ready to be doing, and I've talked about that many times as well, where I want to be at a certain skill level, and I'm studying a lot of film, and this is in tandem with these things too. I'm trying to in kind of tandem with my 2016 New Year's resolution is I'm trying to push myself to do better, is I'm trying to study and so that I can get better. I'm doing a lot of different things in order to push myself, hopefully, to the next level of skill. In terms of my storytelling, I'm watching a lot more movies and studying a lot more different types of stories and getting a lot of different things out of that as much as I possibly can, of which I've been very thankful to have a lot of friends watching through a bunch of them with me that I have on a little list that I'm going through and everything, which has been really cool. And then in terms of the visuals, obviously, I'm in the middle of the 10-week storyboard class. I've just finished, I think, the third or fourth week so far, so I'm close to the halfway point on that. We're taking a break for the 4th of July weekend right now. And to describe my experience with that, the teacher has been fantastic. He's been very helpful, really engaging, a lot of really, really good advice, and he's very experienced. It's been a really good experience so far that I've had. The beginning of it, I was very, very frustrated. The beginning of this year, before I was doing this class, because I was trying to take this earlier and I kept missing the spot for it. My friend Crystal Can, who's a great artist, she recommended it to me. She took it, and now she's working in the industry as a storyboard artist, which is awesome. She's super talented. And when I was beginning the year off, I wanted to make a real storyboard portfolio so that I could try to push harder into getting a studio job of some kind and start actually working in the industry and knowing what it's actually like to work on a real show or a real movie or a real game or whatever, And so I started working on a storyboard portfolio, which is part of where the Andy the Frog cartoon actually came from. I've been thinking about doing that for a while, but that was something that I decided to just use as an example in that case. And then shortly after that, I was like, fuck it, I'll animate it, and got that done a lot quicker than I thought. And actually, here's a little tease for you all if you've gotten this far. One of the other storyboard portfolio pieces that I was working on that I want that I had in there is actually a new short that I'm working on right now, and I'm trying to really pace myself on it and do like one shot of animation on it per day, so that I really take my time and make it as good looking as possible, and really have it be something special looking and not just like another cartoon or whatever. But yeah, that aside, so I started working on those, and I had some great feedback from Crystal and Jake, who I both mentioned now. And big thanks to them; they were great. I started working on those, and that was like the beginning of the year. That was like within February, March, I'd finished that. But as you can see, the job opportunities aren't exactly happening overnight, which is fair enough. I can't expect that, and the reality is because I'm not strong enough in storyboarding to be getting jobs yet. I'm not at that skill level. So, which is part of the reason why I'm taking the class. Now, skipping back to now, I was saying before, the beginning of the class was really frustrating for me personally, not because of the class itself, but because of my own self-doubt and the walls that I was hitting. On my first assignment, I did 2 entire passes of the whole thing from the ground up because I was so, agitated with the first pass I did, and I look at it and I was like, this is awful, I suck at this, I'm terrified, and I still have a little bit of this fear, but it's been lessened, thankfully. But I had this fear of I'm going to get to the end of these 10 weeks, and I'm going to find out that I'm not meant to be doing this, and I'm not good at it, and I'm going to be like, great, I moved out here for fucking nothing. And I know, a lot of people, you hear that, and you're going to think, oh, but all the voice acting stuff you've done, and all the cartoons you've made. I moved here to work in the animation industry primarily. Obviously, yes, on a side note, I am also learning a lot more about games. And that is something that I definitely want to get into as well. But primarily, I moved here, actually on a more general description, I moved here to push myself to the next level of my career because there was nothing in New York really for me to be doing in terms of like my overall goals, which are to create bigger and better stuff than what I've done before. And I said this a little bit in the general question Kirblog about like, why don't you do Tome Season 3? And the main reason is because, again, I don't think that if I do that, it's going to progress me as much as an artist as I want to. I think that if I just spend another year doing another, season's worth of episodes or whatever, I am not going to grow in the way that I want. And even though I did grow more over doing Tome, it wasn't to the extent that I needed to be at. And it was, that was 4 years of my life that I spent on that, and we're now coming up on almost a 5th year by the time we get to November, and I've been out here for now 2 weeks, Jesus Christ. I've been living in California for 2 weeks, guys. Didn't you know? No, I've been living here now for 2 years, and I don't know if I'm close. I don't even know. I have no clue. And I've had votes of confidence from a lot of people, including all of you guys listening and a lot of my friends and colleagues, which I'm very, very happy about and I really appreciate. And I'm glad that I have a support system like that. But yeah, I did that first homework assignment and I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. I did that. The second assignment was a storyboard revisionist assignment, which is kind of a starting position in the animation world for when you work on a show. I did that, felt a little bit better about it, and then the third, my most recent homework assignment I haven't started on yet. We have 2 weeks for that since we're taking off for 4th of July weekend, is bigger. But the one before this was a shorter scene, and I was figuring out Photoshop a lot more, doing it that way, and I was feeling a lot better about it. I'm like, okay, this is in a bit of a better direction. I like this. Okay, so I'm feeling better about it. But overall, my frustration has been from impatience, because I want to get back to doing what it is that you guys want, which is making cartoons and making media of some kind and telling stories and accomplishing what I realized back in, just by the end of last year, why I'm doing it, making stories that will have as positive of an impact on all of you as possible. Like, that is what is important to me, is like, because... And this goes back to the first question again, feeling like what you're doing is useless. I was terrified. I'm still terrified that what I'm doing is useless. And I don't know if I'll ever be good enough. I don't know. I have no fucking clue. And it's really frustrating. And it's because I'm impatient. I want to jump into doing something immediately. I dream about fucking doing the Balancing Act movie tomorrow. I think about it all the time, but I'm not ready yet. And there's other things that I should be doing leading up to that I can get better on the way to, and the importance of everything that you do, even though it feels like nothing's going to come out of it, is that everything needs to be a stepping stone. Everything needs to be a learning experience. I've always said that for years and years. Even before I did Tome, I was saying that everything I do is an exercise. It's all about getting better so that the next thing will be bigger and better. And the other thing is, this kind of ties in with both questions a little bit, is I want to be motivated for the right reasons. Something that I get really frustrated with aspiring anythings. I mean, I see it a lot with voice actors, but I also see it a lot with artists and, content creators or whatever. I think a lot of people get motivated for the wrong reasons, and who am I to judge? But in my eyes, the wrong reasons are stuff like, oh, I want to be famous. Oh, I want to make a shit ton of money. Oh, I want to get self-indulgence out of this. I want to get lots of fans. I want to whatever. I want to be super well known. To me, those are the wrong reasons. And, if that's what motivates you, then I can't do anything to change that. And, you have to be the one that changes that yourself. And, even though I was enveloped in that, that time on Newgrounds where I was thinking so much about those kind of things, it was what I really wanted to do before that motivated me to eventually get out of it and back into this. And now the most recent revelations that I've been having in the past year or so about myself as a person and as an artist, of course, are what are allowing me to hopefully focus more intensely on what is important. Which, as I said, is to do better, to go bigger and better, and most importantly, to have the messages and the morals and the themes and the impact that I leave on all of you who, spend any of your time experiencing anything that I work on, that I put out for anybody to listen to and to watch, to be as positive as possible. And to go back to the second question, part of why I'm trying to push myself so hard and why I'm being so hard on myself is because I don't want to put in the minimal amount of effort. I don't want to just make more tome quality shit and just call it a fucking day. I want it to be worth it. I want to evolve. I want to evolve so that I can do better and give all of you something better. That is incredibly important to me because I don't want to just rest on, this is good enough. Fuck it. Good enough isn't good enough. There's no such thing as that. When I'm at the level that I can get to doing balancing act, I'll know and I'll be ready. And when that time comes, I'll be on cloud fucking 9. When I'm at the point, where I can do whatever is in between that, I'll know. It might be one of the other projects that I've been alluding to, that has to do with other people, me having to work with them to do it in the first place. It might be me working on somebody else's major project. It might be hopefully getting a studio job, which I would love to do. I would really, really love to get that this year if possible. I don't know. I'm still, like I said, I'm terrified to find out that and that I'm going to feel like, which is why I'm already, being self-defeatist, and that's not good, that what I'm doing right now is useless because what it's going to end up being is useless. I'm not going to be good enough by the end of this class, and etc. And I also have to remind myself, no, I may not be, but that doesn't mean it's the end. I have to keep pushing myself to do better. I have to do more. I have to put more effort and time into making whatever is next better. So to get off the train of this therapy session to you all, addressing the actual question, to the second one, look, my mentality is I do think that effort should equal success. Unfortunately, it doesn't, at least not on the internet necessarily. But I think that it is important for the sake of the first question, which is your motivation. I think that there's value to everything that we do. There is value in art for the sake of art. That's why when I talk about being motivated for the right reasons, and again, I know who am I to judge that? But the bottom line is it should be about your passion. It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the end result and what you get out of it necessarily. The passion is what you get out of it. It's that. But also, I think it's important, and it's. I say it's healthy. It's not easy. So in that way, it's not always healthy because it requires a lot of fucking work. But if you do it healthily by being smart about it, then it can be very much so. But yeah, I think that pushing yourself to do better, challenging yourself, is extremely important. It's not always going to get you out of that feeling. And what I'm telling you right now, what I spent the first fucking 25 minutes explaining in this, is proof of that. It's not always going to make that feeling go away. But I think that you need to constantly remind yourself. And you know what? I am very often reminded. Even by recording this right now, I'm reminded. And even by, animating on this short, which is part of the reason why also I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to make it, because why not? Because I'm just like, I need to occupy myself with something, with some kind of project in addition to, my voiceover work and my classes and whatever and the other avenues I'm kind of pursuing and the waiting games I'm playing. I need to be fucking creating something. So I'm gonna do this short. Sure, why not? So there's that, and that's also honing hopefully my animation skills in some way. But yeah, that's a small part, And it's most important. Rather, that's a small example in the moment right now. But it's important to challenge yourself so that everything, because then by doing that, even though, on one hand it's like, oh, but good enough isn't good enough and you're never gonna, you're always gonna be dissatisfied or whatever. I think that that's not always true. I think that like when you do have proof of the fact that like you're improving, when I get a job of some kind, like, and when I say that, I mean like the stuff that I've gotten to do, like freelance jobs, of all across the board. I feel really good because it's like, yes, I'm showing that I'm capable. I'm showing to others and to myself, more importantly, that I'm capable and that I'm doing better. Do I still get impatient about like, do I still feel like what I'm doing isn't amounting to much of anything? Sure, that's gonna happen. We're fucking human, and especially, and further, not only we're human, we're fucking artists. And we all want in some way, a little bit of like, what's the word? A little bit of vindication, I guess, to know that like we're going on the right path. And sometimes it's hard to know because when you don't get approval from others, if you don't feel good about your own stuff, then it's like it's hard to know what the fuck that even is. In your question, you put how you want to put importance into the thing that you do. The importance that I put into my creations are the messages and the morals that will hopefully leave a positive impact on everybody who invests their time and effort and emotions into the experience that they get out of watching my work, out of my stories, out of listening to what it is that I have to say through my storytelling. The importance that I put into my work, my studying, my craft, are to be able to do the first one better and to deliver something that is even more impactful than whatever it is I did previously. So what I often have to remind myself is like, with this class is like the importance I'm putting into it is like, this is hopefully going to make me a better cinematographer, a better storyboard artist, to know, what I can do better, which will hopefully lead to me maybe getting a studio job so I can, then the importance I can put into that experience is learning how to work in an environment with a lot of different people on, a massive production that is not my own, which to small extents I learn from the game projects I'm involved in, like Cryomore, which I learn, great things about him being with such a great, team environment because everybody on that team is amazing. And the importance I'm putting into studying more films so that the stories that I do will have more, will have more clarity on their themes and, more in-depth characters, all these things that I'm doing. Even to a smaller extent, like when I put work into being a better actor so that, when I am acting in other, projects that are not my own or in some cases my own too, because I'm self-indulgent and I put myself in all my own shit, of course. I want to give a better performance, and be proud of it. And thankfully, much like how there are moments that, and this is also goes back to, it is worth it, even though like, you're still going to have those moments of like, and that kind of general feeling of, oh, I have to do better. You can still look back on stuff and be proud of things. I'm proud of, even though Tome is extremely fucking flawed, it is not groundbreaking, but I'm incredibly proud of what I got to do with it so far and how many people love it for what it is, and more importantly, that they got something out of it. I'm proud of my performances in stuff like Tales of Zestiria and Gundam The Origin, and Pokemon even to a different kind of way. I'm proud of what I get to do for other people's projects, what I've gotten to do in some small way on Skullgirls and on Cryomore, on A Hat in Time, and all these different things. Those are the things I look back on, and that's what makes, what is sometimes a frustrating road worth it. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be fun 100% of the time. And it's why often I have to remind myself, and this is why I had to step back and be appreciative because, again, I'm not depressed right now. I'm not in a bad place like I was, at the end of last year to the beginning of this year. Life is pretty good. And, I'm still able, again, very, very much thanks to all of you for the most part, am able to make a living off of what it is that I do. And that is extremely important. And and so everything is fine with me. Like I'm okay. For those any and all who are worried that are listening to this for 40 fucking minutes and be like, oh, is he okay? Is he gonna be all right? He seems like really sad. I'm fine. At worst, I'm just frustrated with a lot of things, and I'm feeling impatient, and then there's a lot of things that I want to just do tomorrow, and I can't yet. But that's why I'm at the very least I'm glad that the class is going well. It's getting better. I'm doing the short, which I'm feeling pretty good about so far. But don't feel bad about being burnt out once in a while. Don't feel bad about taking a break. But the importance that you can put into these things, the effort that you can put in, even if it's not always going to equate to immediate success, it still has value to your overall life and your improvement as not only as an artist, no matter any of you all out there, even anybody who, out there listening to this, if you're not an artist or a creative person of any kind, just the effort that you put into being a better person. Again, it's not always going to equate to success. It's not always going to equate to immediate satisfaction, but it's important. It has value to it. That is the importance, the effort that you put in to everything, to be a better person, to be a better version of you the next day than you were the day before. It is all extremely important in the long run. It's all part of the circle of life, and it moves us all. How many fucking Kirblogs do I have Disney movie lyrics in? And yet I didn't open this one with that, did I? I think that's kind of all I have left to say. I really hope, and I mean this, I really hope that I answered this question as best as I could. I just kind of hit the button and let whatever came out. I hope that this was all relevant and important and made sense and was helpful in any way to both of you listening. I think that's going to wrap this up. So in the comments below, anybody else who I'm sure all of you at some point have experienced something akin to this, please, if you want, share your own stories and experiences. Particularly for the people who ask these questions, if they can read what it is that you have to say and hopefully get something further out of it as well. In addition to hopefully whatever may have been helpful from what I've said for the past 40 minutes. Thank you, both of you who asked these questions. Thank you for submitting those. Thank you for listening. I hope that this helped. Again, I can't say that enough, but I will say it multiple billion times. No, I'm done. I won't do that anymore. Anyway, I'm away at Anime-Expo. Hopefully I've run into some of you all, and I'll talk a little bit about that on the next Kirblog. I don't know what will be coming after this. I might even actually have to do another one ahead of time. I might do one about the Voltron show or something, just so I have one ahead of time, because Monday is going to be busy and I won't have much other time to record stuff. So thank you all for listening. Again, hope this was helpful. I did it one more time. There, I lied, whatever. Anyway, I'm fucking rambling. Thank you. Good night. Good day. Good.